Clarke, thanks for joining us up here today. You used to actually work up here in this space, didn't you, years ago?
I did. It's great to be back with the brick walls and a bit of plaster falling down around us.
Yeah.
You thought it was a joke?
No, it's not a joke.
That's no joke.
What is going on?
The possum sting.
Yeah, well, there were a few possums. I remember Craig McRae running down the stairs one morning down into the gym where you would have done some work too, and we wondered what was going on, and he said, "There's a possum as big as me up there."
Oh, mate, there were some beauties. Mate, thanks for joining us. How do you feel at this time of year? Because you put a power of work in, the draft's now done and dusted. Is it a feeling of sort of satisfaction after all the work that's been put in by your team over the last 12 months?
Yeah, I think the first feeling was exhaustion once we finished, but that's all of us. I think we all sort of tend to fall in a bit of a heap, but no, we're very satisfied. I think we've been able to address a few areas of our list that we need bolstering, I think, and but the boys put in a power of work. I'm really lucky that I got great support from above and below and beside me with our team of full-timers and part-timers and scouts, so it's great.
I mean, how hard has it been logistically over the last 2 years? I mean, some of these kids, haven't played a lot of footy, but then just being able to get out and see them play when they could play with all the issues that we've all faced over the last 2 years. How tough has it been to try and keep tabs on these young guys? Yeah,
it's been really tough. You really feel for particularly the Victorian landscape when they hadn't played a lot of footy. But early in the year, we sort of had a bit of a strategy last year that if things turned poor this year, which it did, that we needed to get out early. So we did hit the road early. Will Thursfield and myself. So we were lucky to get into SA and WA early before the borders all sort of closed. And I know a number of other clubs actually didn't get to do that. So some good planning, a little bit of luck, but yeah, that was good. There's no substitute from watching them live.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, you need to see them live, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you get all the vision, and we've got a great support team with the IT stuff that get all the vision from even some of the smaller competitions that we can access, but no substitute for actually watching them live. So to get out and do that was really important.
Matty, you said that we take best available with our first pick, right? So, and that's according to the rating system. I'm really interested in how's the rating system. What is the criteria for the rating system that you have?
Yeah, so we sort of developed the rating system, it'd be going on sort of maybe 10 years now, and it just gives you the idea of, rather than looking at a number which sort of spits out in the end, looking at details about how talented these boys are and their ability to ascend and be, say, first 22 players, or are they going to be fringe players? Do they lack some parts of their game that are not going to allow them to be consistent players? So we sort of have it's a wording system, and you sort of look at that and then you go, okay, well, I reckon this guy is going to be in that system there, and that corresponds with a certain number range for us. And it might be so it's a 100 to 200 type player, and then it slots in there, and that's when we start getting our order once we've done that. So rather than just trying to spit out, he's this number, if you look at the description of the player and where they might sit in the big scheme of things at AFL level, this is long term, we look at that, then put the number next to it, and that gives us our rating.
So when do you start assessing them?
In terms of the rating system,
Yes.
so we're probably assessing them throughout the whole year, to be honest. I've sort of started, and some of the other guys, you might start with a number at the start of the year, and then you might watch a few games, and then some more data comes in, whether it's their testing, and then obviously the psych data comes in as well, and there might be some elements in that might just drag your rating down slightly as their ability to achieve that potential. And then you're sort of getting towards the end of the year, you start really locking it in. So we were reasonably locked into a solid rating probably 2 or 3 weeks out from the draft.
Just on Josh Gibbs' Clarke, so start of the year, is he one that was around that mark from the get-go, or is he one that's kind of played some footy throughout the year that you've seen that really elevated him to that number 9 pick?
Yeah, I think he was always probably rated quite highly to start with, and there was probably some times early in the season where he played a couple of games in the first sort of 4 rounds of the NAB League before their recess that he elevated himself to probably one of the premier key position players in the competition. He came out of the under-16s a couple of years ago with high potential without a massive sort of bulk of work to suggest that he was actually going to hit that. Yeah. And now that he's sort of been able to do that at the start of the year, that sort of pushed him up a bit for us.
Oh, good.
Matty, what about the coach, Tim? Obviously, at the end of the day, he's the man and his head's on the chopping block when we wins and losses. So how much of a say does the coach have on what types of players he wants to try and get in the draft?
Yep. I mean, he's always had a big say on what types of players, the type and what he needs to play our game. But in terms of individual drafts, he pretty much leaves it to us. So because we've had a great relationship with him and being able to build this ranking system and the profiles and the types of what we like, that he likes and needs to play, he leaves us to that a lot of the time. So he probably had a little bit more time this year given the break at the end of the year than he ever has. And he's looked at a number of the players and he said, look, I like what this guy can do, what this guy can do, and we show him some other things. But at the end of the day, he's sort of pretty much sat back and said, well, I can't tell you off a couple of minutes of vision what's going to be the best. You guys have watched them for 3 years, a lot of these guys, so back you boys in, and it's terrific to have a coach like that.
Matty, there seems a couple of key attributes amongst all those draftees, which would be kicking skills and versatility.
Yeah,
that'd be right.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the athletic component of the game these days is paramount, particularly the way that we like to play, and probably most sides like to play if you've got the athletic upside. All those boys that we picked, we think have got that. Their skill level, I think, with the changing of sort of the rules and that in the last 12 months, I think it's had a bit of an impact on that. We've always wanted to be able to pick guys that got a high skill level, but they've also got to have great athletic ability and competitiveness. So, this draft sort of offered up that for us, and we think we've given the coaches a good mix.
So selecting Tom Brown with our second pick this year was trading out of last year's draft into this year's first round. Is that the type of play you had the view that would be around our pick at this stage?
Yeah, definitely. There was a group of players that we thought outside the probably the first few, particularly out of the 16s, and then you throw Dacos into that. There might be some of those guys with genuine upside and potential. So moving the pick into this year, we thought there was going to be a band there between sort of 10 and 15, 10 to 20 that would be really strong options for us. So, so some really good strategy around that, and then obviously building into those 20 picks was even more valuable.
Yeah.
Matty, just a couple of quick ones before we get into an assessment of each of the draftees. Shane Edwards, noticed him in the room. So Shane's got a real interest in recruiting. Is that where he wants to sort of move into that area post his playing career? Yeah,
he has. Yeah, he's been with us for a few years now. He's got great insight, Shane, and he's really good in meetings. And being Shane, and Richo would know him quite well. He doesn't say a lot of the time, Shane, but when he's got something to say, it's very to the point, and it gives us a really good insight as to what happens on the ground from a playing point of view. So when we're discussing a type of player with his structural involvement and things like that, he's always got some great views on, well, I'm not sure if that guy is in this mix, it's actually going to work for us and things like that. So
the fact he doesn't say a lot, when he does say something, it's going to have real impact, isn't it?
Absolutely. He's a cracker, Shane, because we interviewed one of the boys that went in the top 10 only a couple of weeks before the draft, and the excitement on his face when he said to us, "Oh, geez, I was excited to meet that guy." And we said, "Oh, Shane, I reckon he might have been a bit more excited than me."
But he's a modest man.
But he's a very modest man.
That's exactly. I just want to quickly ask you about, it wasn't one of the current draftees, but Matej Kalina. How's Matej coming along?
Yeah, well, he's shooting some points over Hawaii just at the minute.
That.
He's been in good form the last few weeks, that's for sure. So, so he'll be finished up early next year with them, and then, he'll arrive back here as a full-time Richmond athlete.
Great.
So we're really excited for the big fella to come back.
I think he had a season best. I think 24 points the other day.
Yeah, he did. He's looking fit and really strong. So he's always loved his basketball, but the culture and the people who've got here that it's attracted him to come to us.
And are you confident, given that he's played a bit of footy, so you're confident that he can really develop?
Yeah, well? Absolutely. I mean, he spent a bit of time with us in Sydney this year while we're up in the Sydney hub and did some work up there, and I think he's got massive upside.
All right, matey, let's have a bit of a closer look at each one of our picks. Obviously, our first pick at pick 9 was Josh Gibcus from... Where's Josh from again?
Ballarat.
Sorry. Ballarat.
St Pat's.
And vertical jump. I think he was the highest in his year for the vertical jump. So he's got a good leap and he's an intercept defender. Yeah,
it didn't sort of surprise us when he tested the way he did because of his vertical. He showed that in the under-16s when he came through there, and then you watch some of his jumping off one of both legs at NAB league level, and that didn't surprise us. So, he's a really exciting key position. I think he's a key position prospect.
I was going to say that. You think he could play forward?
Yeah, we've seen him do little snippets forward. Okay. And it's funny that even though he's played back for most of his career, he played for WA because he's obviously moved around a bit in his junior life as a key forward in the under-12 nationals for WA, and the fellow that Fremantle picked, Jai Amos, was playing back at that point. So we just think he's got the athletic ability to play both ends.
Just with the young key forwards in the game at the moment with the King boys and Harry Mackay, is that that vertical leap and the size it gives really gives us an advantage down back as well.
Yeah, I think you need to have that, and I think everybody's sort of planning for those sorts of boys to potentially dominate games. So if you don't have a match up for them, and we think that potentially Bolter's a really good option for those big boys, as we've seen. But Josh has also got that with his vertical and more his reach as well. Yeah.
So, Matty, when the ball's in the air, he just tries to win it, doesn't he? He sees it. He's not worried about defending the whole time. He wants to win it back, obviously.
Absolutely.
That's obviously like a Jeremy McGovern or a Jake Lever type player.
Yeah, he's definitely got those attributes. People have compared him to Lever in that sort of role. I think he's got that. He's a leaner top body at the moment, but he's going to put on enough weight to be a genuine key position player.
Is he 197?
He's 196 and a bit, I think.
So how much, like generally with draftees, is there a bit more growth in them in terms of another year or two of maybe putting on a couple more centimetres? Or?
Yeah, it probably varies across different types, and the whole thing with the growth plates being still open that they measure and then things from X-rays when they've been injured, you can usually tell from that. But I think he's sort of got that. His dad's a tall guy, and I think he might have. But I don't think it's going to hurt him if he's not any taller than he is. Given his vertical, you see Grimesy at his sort of size get away with it playing on some of the bigger boys as long as they're athletic enough. Yeah.
Looks a great type. Well, Manfred mentioned before, pick 2, obviously Tom Brown, Murray Bushrangers, his dad being a former Cats player, 186 centimetres, got real pace though and plays across half back.
Yeah, he does. He's really only played across half-back the last 12 months or so. He's actually played most of his junior footy as a forward, so the ball coming to him. So, no, he's got great, good speed. He's actually got elite vertical as well, Tommy. His edits come up really well in terms of his vertical with his spoiling. So, and a classy ball user as well. So, could play multiple roles down back. We could probably see him play through the wing as well because he's got really good decision-making. He's got a good aerial asset too.
Do you see with the way the game is evolving that, I guess, behind the ball, we need to really bolster up and get some real athleticism and speed and versatility behind that, just with the way it's more of a kick mark game these days?
Yeah, it seems to have gone that way. I think you'd love to play a front half forward turnover game, but with the sort of the man the mark rule and the inability to move, to be able to roll back and still attack really well from the back half if you can, or centre back. I think guys that can win the ball back, use it with the really good foot skill and speed. I think that's really important.
With Basher leaving, obviously, with that offensive run that he provided for us, is this something that Brown can provide?
Yeah, I definitely think so, and probably one of the other boys we'll talk about shortly. I think he's got those attributes as well. So that sort of metres gain play with their feet and then with their kicking.
Now, with our third pick, Matty, pick 28 overall, we picked. I know you were just delighted when this player was still there at pick 28. Tyler Sonsy from Eastern Rangers and Roval, and his highlights package looks pretty impressive.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, he probably comes up with one of the better packages, Tyler. So I mean, he's battled a little bit in the last 12 months or so with a couple of injuries and obviously the shutdown with the footy for some of these boys actually getting out on the park and playing games. But
did you feel like this is a bargain at 27? 28, sorry.
Yeah, I sort of. Yeah, we think so. We were sort of doing some manoeuvring on the night whether we need to move for some of these boys, and then sort of through some good planning and a little bit of luck that you need along the way that he sort of came through. And obviously they potentially fall through for a reason at times, but we think we've got the right environment for him to really thrive.
He was touted as potentially top 10, top 5 even.
Top 5, I reckon.
Top
started
5
last year.
Top 5,
yeah, absolutely. Out of the under-16s, he had a really good, really successful under-18, under-16 championships, but I think, definitely the last 18 months with that lack of footy and the lack of ability to sort of train and develop as a group has been the toughest thing on these boys, I think, rather than the actual games themselves.
And he's a Tiger fan too.
He's a massive Tiger fan, so he was really excited, so as were we.
And just with those challenges he's had this year, do you feel like he's the type of guy that will really thrive in our environment as well?
Yeah, I think so. I think we've got the right football department, coaching group and playing group that can really embrace what Tyler needs to get the best out of himself. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's always up to the individual and the player. But if we can just provide that platform for him to really thrive and sort of be really positive about the way he goes about his footy and real structure in his life with his footy, I reckon that'll really help him.
And played a really good game at VFL level for Box Hill, 20-odd possessions and 2 goals.
Yeah, and he went into that game a little bit banged up. We weren't sure he was actually going to play. And then it just shows those guys that even at whatever level they play, they can find the footy, and Tyler's one of those. So, he was really impressive in that game.
Looks a good stoppage player.
Yeah, I think that sort of helps us. I think
Yeah.
it was sort of a bit of a need there at that point to assist some of the younger guys that are going to come through. I think with Dowie and Rossi and Riley and these sorts of guys, I think adding another one was really important for us.
All right, lads, it's the time now. The Tassie boys. We love the Tassie boys, Manfred, don't we?
We love the Tassie boys, Richo.
We're just having a chat about Sam Banks and the small town that he's from near Oatlands, and he's another Clarence man.
From Whiteford, where
Whiteford.
Royce is from, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, another defender, can play wing, 187 centimetres, but can run from behind the footy.
Yeah, no, he's played a lot of his footy through half-back, but he's played some footy on the wing. He's done a bit of centre bounce as a young kid, but sort of one of those lucky... It's almost, I find it lucky for some of these kids that get to grow up probably playing a bit of senior footy, I reckon, as a 15, 16-year-old, and the lessons you learn not only about footy and about life, some good and some bad, Tony,
Definitely.
as you know.
Yes, exactly.
But I think that's really held him
Definitely
in good
helps,
stead.
no doubt about that.
Yeah, I was lucky enough being a country kid to go through not footy, but just I think it's really important for those guys when some of the boys play NAB league level and they don't get to do that, and they're playing against their peers the whole time. But I think this has held Sammy in good stead.
Well, Royce rang me. He's very excited to follow his progress. Yeah, had a chat about him. Yeah.
Clarke, is he another one that with COVID and maybe a bit of injury this year, that he's one that's kind of slid on the night as well?
Yeah, I think so. I think out of the under 16s, I think most clubs would have probably thought he was a top 15, top 20 pick.
Yeah.
So, he's had a couple of injuries this year with his wrist, and then obviously the Tassie boys not getting enough games in the NAB League. But, I mean, we were watching him play senior footy for the last couple of years, and we've got a really good scout on the ground, and Nick Probert, who's a star, and he knows the landscape really well. So we're really confident when Sammy got through to
Seems to have good leadership qualities as well.
Yeah, terrific leadership. He's always displayed that all the way through. Sometimes these boys get leadership roles and captaincy when they're just really good players, but Sammy's got it for both. He's a really good player and he's a really good person.
No, good.
He's been the standout in Tassie now since the under-16s, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has, and even before that, I think through 12s and 15s and things like that. So.
It was interesting on the night to listen to Shifter Sheen. He, just bunks up every player, but he was really, really wrapped in Sammy Banks.
Yeah, we bumped into Shifter actually after the draft on the Thursday night, and he admits that at times. Shifter goes, "Yeah, I know, I love them all, but he goes, I think this one's going to be right."
Yeah,
so,
he sort of talked about he'd been forgotten sort of a little bit, hadn't he? Yeah,
no, that's true. That's true. Now, with our final pick, fifth and final pick 30, this is a young player. Richo is really excited, having watched his highlights package, but Judson Clarke, who's from
I haven't seen him in person.
No, but you watched his minute and a half of highlights.
did,
and
that makes him an expert, I'm sure.
I text Tone straight away, Matty. I said, gee, I like the look of this guy.
So Judson Clarke, from Dandenong Stingrays, and he's a pretty exciting small forward.
Yeah, he is. Yep, he's sort of played a lot of footy. He goes to Yarra Valley Grammar, so he's played some really good school footy. We saw him in a school game down there early in the year where he was just playing everywhere. Yeah. So come off an ACL so he missed his bottom age year, and he's come through that really well. But he's put together a really good package of footy. His trial for Vic Country out at Werribee was outstanding.
Kick five.
Kick five, just that sort of linking up, sort of high forward midfield player that can actually use the ball pretty well and run and use it. So and he's a quality kid. So which all they all are. So we're really excited.
Yeah, so looks to have really good attributes about getting up the ground and getting back, but also high possession player as well, which is always handy when he's as damaging as he is with his left foot.
Yeah, absolutely. We sort of see him in Kane Lambert's sort of role, of long term, and I think Lambo can teach him a lot of things about how to actually run those patterns as a forward up the ground.
Quick.
So he's quick. He's got really fast feet, so really good lateral to get in and out. So.
You mentioned Kane Lambert, probably the best runner at the club. Well, Judson's run a 6.19 2K'er. That's good running.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so Judson's run a 6.19. Even the big boy Gibcus has run a 6.17 as a 196 centimetre player. Yeah.
What did you used to run, Richo?
Well, we didn't do a 2K, but it would have been pushing to do that. I'll give you the tip. That's good going for a big man. Yeah. Now, Manfred, I think you've got a few questions from our TT listeners that we asked for during the week.
Yeah, Richo put the feelers out, Clarke, and we got a few questions that have come through. I guess from Greg Evans initially. What attributes has the new rule changes made in the game made? What attributes are we really holding high on our draftees coming in?
Yeah, I think we've always had strong attributes on their athletic upside, so I think that's really important for us. I think kicking probably has been the other one. I mean, I think we've always had that, but we've sort of developed a game style with the coaches, a really high pressure, high manic game, so that maybe we've erred on the side of more high pressure and physical sort of type of players. So That might have changed a little bit with our focus this year, but I think you still got to plan for both. So there's still some guys in the mix that maybe we didn't pick, but they're in the mix because they're probably more physical type of players, but with less foot skill. But I think we're really, really excited by the boys that can use the ball as well, and I think they all can, particularly the runners and the midfielder in Sonsy.
And we're grabbing Gibcus at 9. A lot of draft boards had Ben Hobbs kind of linked to our pick as well, and he was still on the board after 9. Did we look at drafting up on the night to kind of grab Hobbs, or were you happy to grab Brown at 17?
We were really happy to grab Brownie where we did, so we thought that he'd be right in our wheelhouse when it got to that pick. We did make some inquiries about potentially moving for a Hobbs type after that, and there was obviously some strategy around, okay, well, if that did work and we got Hobbs, well, how do we get Brown as well? So it might have been a sacrifice of some of those other picks, but at the end of the day, I mean, we end up sitting where we were with all the picks, and we were excited when we probably walked out after Thursday night and said, well, we've got those 5 boys. I mean, it's the old party line of the recruiting box. Can't believe they got to our pick.
Absolutely. We could play bingo.
Yeah, but I think if you're realistic enough to know, okay, well, if we're going to sit here, these are the guys that are going to be around our pick. We're really happy.
I guess moving forward, what are the, areas of our list that you'd like to bolster in the next 2, 3, 4 years?
Yeah, well, obviously we've got some veterans sort of going to probably be finishing up in the next few years, so and that's that happens to every club. I think we've got enough untapped talent on our list at the moment. When you look at guys like Dow and Collier Dawkins and these sorts of guys, and Ralph Smith and Martin, you consider that Noah Bolter's 22.
Exactly, yeah. Shea Bolton, 22, 23.
Yeah, well, Jack Graham's 23. He's played 70 or 80 games. So I think there's enough there that can cover those roles as well. So it'll be more that how do we sort of replace that tier of player when we hopefully those guys step up into those roles. So we're always planning sort of 5 years ahead.
Yep.
And gee, it'll be nice to have a VFL season, a full season for these guys, won't it? I mean, they just haven't been able to play. Yeah. Just need to see them out there weekly, don't we?
Yeah, it's huge. You look at someone like Thompson Dow's played 5 VFL games in 2 years, 5 actual games of footy under those conditions. So it's been really tough.
Our supporters are just going to absolutely be so excited to watch the progress of, this year's crop, but also, the last couple of years' crop of players. Yeah.
Any more, Matt?
Just on our VFL, Richo, obviously a bit of a pump up to our program. Grant McDonough getting selected by Essendon, Jake Saligo getting picked up by Adelaide, and also Warner. Carl Warner got picked up, and also Sam Durham through the mid-season draft as well.
You're about the only one from the VFL program that didn't get picked up by anyone else.
Still putting some calls in time.
Is that it? No more fan questions?
We're right.
No, thanks for all the TT listeners that sent in some questions. Matty, thanks so much for coming up and joining us today. Great to get your insight. Now, really I believe the recruiting department had a little get-together just to celebrate what you've been able to achieve as a group and talk about the draft. And our man, the Chief, may have invited himself to the recruiting little getaway. Is that correct?
That is correct, yeah. We sort of do it every year.
And, isn't he?
Yeah, he wandered into our office and said, wouldn't mind sort of jumping in here, boys, and just having a look. I've got a real interest in the way we do things, and threw a few barbs from the seats, the cheap seats, and got the backup of a couple of the boys that had done the work, but it might have been premeditated by the Chief.
Well, noticed on the second night, Matty wasn't there. Obviously, had a better offer, something else to do.
I think so.
Or Matty and Blair just told him, "Just Chief, maybe just stay home tonight."
Now, this is not good for a podcast, but it may be a bit of a lookalike too. In the recruiting department have discovered he looks like an American quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, no,
an old version of this quarterback.
Older version, it hasn't grabbed a lot of traction. But I don't know if the listeners have seen Derek Carr lately from the Raiders.
He's got the beard going.
He's got the beard going, and the bit of a boof going up top as well.
He's got a bit of a
perm mullet happening.
Perm mullet, yeah.
But there's one thing Derek Carr doesn't have to do yet. He doesn't have to put the Just for Men through the beard just yet, like the Chief is.
I'll leave that one to you blokes to discuss that.
Thanks for joining us, mate. You want to hang around and listen to a couple of gags from Greeners?
Ripping gags.
That's the only reason why. Not that I didn't want to talk draft, but I always want to come down and listen to Tone.
All right, very good.